Tom Cameron Quaid.
Jeff Huntley. David Bridges. Tom Brokaw.
There are chilling new details tonight about the schoolhouse shooting in Amish country, what may have triggered the gunman to attack those little girls. There is new Foley fallout tonight, and the Speaker of the House is facing more calls to resign. A new record high for the Dow, what it really means this time around. And our series, The Home Front, America's women in uniform, fighting and dying in record numbers in wars with no front lines.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. It's been almost painful to watch the Amish of rural Pennsylvania who insist on their own private lives, now forced to grieve while cameras take their pictures. The only thing more painful is the loss they have suffered. The death toll rose overnight and several children now remain in critical condition. We learn more today about the man who did this. By most accounts, he was apparently leading a perfectly ordinary life before exploding in an extraordinary act of violence. We have all aspects of this story covered once again tonight, and we begin our reporting this evening with NBC's Rahema Ellis, who remains in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Rahema, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. There is more sadness in this small community tonight because some of the children taken to the hospital yesterday did not make it through the night. Now 5 young girls are dead. 2 of them, we understand, are sisters, and 5 more children remain hospitalized. Tonight, there is more information about the gunman that may help explain what led him to this deadly rampage. Police now say this Amish schoolhouse was the final step in a well-thought-out plan by Charles Roberts IV to commit murder.
He had a mental script that he had already gone through in his mind and a plan as to what he was going to do until the time that the police arrived.
We now know more about his plan from these suicide notes and what the father of 3 told his wife in that brief phone call before the shooting.
And he states, I molested some minor family members that were 3 or 4 years old 20 years ago. It's unclear from his wife, but Robert states that he's getting revenge for something that occurred in his life.
Police found a checklist in his milk truck. Among the items, nails, bullets, guns, and binoculars, a list that matched the evidence found in the school. Roberts had purchased some of the items at this hardware store less than an hour before he arrived at the school and launched his deadly assault on the 10 young girls he held hostage.
All of them received gunshot wounds.
The notes also revealed Roberts never got over the death of his first child, a premature baby girl buried in this cemetery 9 years ago. Police say Roberts, the son of a retired police sergeant with no criminal record, hid his darkest secrets from his family.
He certainly was very troubled psychologically deep down and was dealing with things that nobody else knew he was dealing with.
Today, residents of this peaceful community are finding out more about who the gunman really was and relying deeply on their faith.
Even though there's been this terrible thing happen, we don't need to think about judgment. We need to think about forgiveness and going on.
And experts on the Amish community say people here see this tragedy as the act of a disturbed individual and not an attack on the Amish way of life. Brian?
Rahema Ellis again tonight from Lancaster County, PA. Rahema, thanks for your reporting. There is no police force in this heavily Amish Pennsylvania township because normally there is no crime. Most Amish families have no health care. They care for their own or go through church cooperatives for any medical needs. This tragedy has torn apart their quiet existence, and these shootings are the subject of our in-depth reporting here tonight. My colleague Ann Curry spent time in that community all day today and is with us from there tonight. Ann, good evening.
Brian, good evening to you. Behind these doors, the community memorial service is overflowing with more than 1,000 people. And earlier today, I spoke with a Mennonite nurse midwife who delivered some of the girls who were killed. She spoke on behalf of their families today.
When I found out that it happened, I went to the farm where all the families were gathering, and the families were obviously in grief. I get the feeling that some people are saying, you know, well, if the Amish wouldn't be so closed, and if they only had phones, or if they only had vehicles. I really don't think there was anything that was going to stop that guy. I really don't.
Devastating realization once you were able to begin to identify and have the parents realize what had happened. You yourself, you're devastated by what you've learned.
I'm upset. You know, the one family had 3 children involved. 1 had escaped. 2 were shot. Those are my babies. Those are one of the families I delivered, and they're my babies.
What kind of children? How would you describe these children?
It was her oldest daughter. She's 13, the one that died, and she said she was just beginning to blossom, and she was very sweet.
If that was not devastating enough, you also know of another family that just this morning, these 2 children we have learned that overnight died, the 7-year-old and the 8-year-old, they were members of the same family?
Right, they are from the same family.
How is that family doing, and are they as forgiving?
They will be, yes.
Why do you know that?
When you have Christ in you, you know, God said, you know, I will forgive you as you forgive others, and we all truly believe that. There's 2 things happen with your faith. Either you let it go and you get bitter, or you grow stronger. And we'll grow stronger.
How do you know?
When you have Christ in you, that's what happens.
That was nurse practitioner Rita Rhodes. Now, about the sisters who died last night, NBC News has learned the decision has been made to bury them in a single grave. Their dresses are now being made. Brian, back to you.
And thank you for that. Ann Curry's reporting will continue tomorrow morning on Today. There was nothing to stop yesterday's rampage in that one-room schoolhouse, but all across this country, one question a lot of people have been asking is, could this kind of thing have been stopped at all at other schools? NBC News correspondent Kevin Tibbles takes an in-depth look tonight at 2 large high schools in and around Chicago.
A tragic timeline over the course of just 1 week. A 16-year-old shot dead in Colorado, a high school principal gunned down in Wisconsin, and now 5 young girls murdered in Pennsylvania. Each a tragedy that reverberates in the hallways of schools like Evanston Township High School north of Chicago.
It's not just stuff we talk about, it's stuff we live and breathe on a regular basis.
Frank Kaminsky isn't just the school's director of security, he's Evanston's former police chief. There's an armed officer on campus, a walkie-talkie call away from the police. Over the last decade, safety has taken its place right up there with the 3 R's. As in many schools, each student must show a school ID to enter. Movement is monitored by cameras in the hallways at all times. And there's a color-coded action plan for emergencies. Red means there's an armed intruder. Students and faculty train on how to react.
These safety codes just aren't dog-eared pieces of paper hanging on the wall.
No, you'll see this in every classroom and every office throughout this building.
At Chicago's Roberto Clemente High, the next step. Because of gang activity, students pass through metal detectors.
If safety can't be adhered to, then the reason why we're here, which is education, can't take place.
But schools are part of communities, and security analysts say parents must be key partners in keeping them safe.
Our enemy now really is complacency, is letting down our guard, is lulling ourselves into believing that it can't possibly happen here.
And as yesterday's rampage in Pennsylvania shows, it can happen. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Chicago.
Families across this country have been watching this coverage and asking themselves, if this can happen in a one-room schoolhouse in Amish country, how safe can our own children be? We'll talk about that question and the other matters this raises with our medical editor, Dr. Nancy Snyderman, a bit later on in this broadcast tonight. Now we switch to the Mark Foley Congressional page scandal that has consumed much of Washington. As the online Bible of Washington politics, The Hotline, put it today, the Republican House leadership has formed a circular firing squad over who knew what and when. And while more emails were unveiled in the media today, will all of this end up costing the Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, his own job? NBC's Chip Reed is with us again tonight from Capitol Hill. Chip, good evening.
Well, good evening, Brian. Tonight there's another strange twist in this strange story. Mark Foley's attorney revealing that Foley himself was abused as a teenager.
Foley's attorney says the new revelation is not intended as an excuse for his client's behavior.
He kept his shame to himself for almost 40 years. between the ages of 13 and 15, he was molested by a clergyman.
For the first time, President Bush today weighed in on the Foley scandal, condemning the former congressman.
I was disgusted by the revelations and disappointed.
But defending Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert, who says he first became aware of the Foley scandal Friday, even though two senior House Republicans say they told him about it months ago. Today, some conservatives called for Hastert's head. The Washington Times in an editorial writing, either he was grossly negligent or he deliberately looked the other way in hopes that a brewing scandal would simply blow away. Leading conservative Richard Viguerie said the entire Republican leadership should step down.
Congressman Hastert and any of the others that knew about this and did not take action to protect these young boys should resign.
Even some top House Republicans were pointing the finger at Hastert today, including Majority Leader John Boehner, who said it was Hastert who should have been dealing with the scandal, not him.
It's in his corner. It's his responsibility. The clerk of the House, who runs the page program, the page board, all report to the Speaker.
On Rush Limbaugh's conservative talk show, Hastert insisted he won't step down.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
And he suggested, without offering any evidence, that Democrats leaked the Foley story for political purposes.
And they drop it the last day of the session before we adjourn on an election year.
Democrats denied the charge, and the woman likely to be Speaker next year if Democrats win control of the House fired back at Republican leaders.
They held this closely. They shared it among themselves. They did not act to protect the children. They're all responsible.
As for Foley, he remains in an alcohol rehabilitation program where he will be for at least another 30 days. Brian?
Chip Reed on Capitol Hill for us tonight. Chip, thank you for that. And as this Foley scandal was beginning to sink in across the country with voters, a brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll was already in the works. Our Washington bureau chief, moderator of Meet the Press, Tim Russert, with us tonight from Capitol Hill as well. Tim, first off, before we get to the numbers, I know you continue to track the damage from this kind of thing.
Brian, rank and file Republican members back home in their districts are in a high state of anxiety. One said to me today, "We came in as the guardians of family values. Unless our leaders fix this and fix it quickly, a lot of us could get taken down 5 weeks from today."
Now, Tim, to these numbers, it's important we say our tracking started as this story started to track across the country. First off, the president.
The president, Brian, is back down in the 30% approval rating. It is a 39%. 56% disapproval. You see, 1 month ago, it was 42 to 53. And Brian, look at this. We asked people, based on what you've been hearing and seeing these last few weeks, which party do you believe more favorably disposed to controlling Congress? 34% say Democrats, 23% less favorable to the Democrats. And here's the Republican number. 18% say more favorably disposed to the Republicans, 41% now less favorably disposed to the Republicans, based on what people have been hearing the last few weeks.
Now, Tim, on the big issue of Iraq, since we last polled on it, we had that Defense Intelligence report come out, and now this Woodward book. It's all over the media. What are the findings and the numbers?
Brian, the president has been insisting that the Iraq war is central to the war on terror and is a very positive influence on that war. The American people now starting to differ. Look at these numbers. Exactly what effect is the war on terror Iraq having on the war on terror? Helping 32, hurting 46%. Measure that to 1 month ago and look at the change. A 14% increase in the number of people from 32 to 46 who believe the Iraq war is hurting the war on terror, not the message the White House wants out 5 weeks to a midterm election.
Now, the numbers are on the move with a month to go. Tim Russert on Capitol Hill in Washington tonight. Tim, as always, thanks. We'll take a break here when Nightly News continues. After a break this Tuesday night, Wall Street and a new record close for the Dow Jones 30 Industrials. The latest on the markets, what it means next. And later, the advances and the sacrifices of American military women fighting in larger numbers than ever before.
Tomorrow on Today, do you know what you're bagging at the grocery store? Our hidden cameras uncover fresh evidence.
The place was filthy.
On Today, only on NBC.
As we mentioned a moment ago, this was a big day on Wall Street. The 110-year-old Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at an all-time high. The Dow gained just under 57 points on the day's trading to close at 11,727.34. That is just over 4 points above its highest ever previous close. NASDAQ was also up today 6 points, but it is still nowhere near its old highs. Tonight with us for more from the New York Stock Exchange, my colleague from CNBC, Maria Bartiromo. Maria, you study this for a living. What brought this on?
Well, once again, Brian, the story of the rally in stock markets had so much to do with the pullback in the price of oil. Crude oil today broke $60 a barrel. It finished below $59. And when you consider the fact that oil was way up, close to $80 a barrel just a couple of months ago, and gasoline was above $3 a gallon just a few months ago, you can see why people are feeling much better about the economy. That going into the final 3 months of the year, people will be able to spend money. They don't have that pressure of high oil prices, high heating oil costs, and gasoline on their back. So people are feeling good about the economy right now.
Maria, thanks for that. Maria Bartiromo from CNBC from the NYSE tonight. We'll fit another break in here when Nightly News continues in a moment this Tuesday. How to talk to the children who have seen this news out of Pennsylvania. Some advice tonight from our chief medical editor, Dr. Nancy Snyder. We're back and we turn once again to the story that has started off this broadcast for the last 2 evenings now, the Amish schoolhouse shootings and the issues parents are dealing with in light of it. For more, we're joined here by our chief medical editor, Dr. Nancy Snyderman, for some guidance on this. And Nancy, I think in just about every American home with a television, somebody said, if this can happen in a one-room schoolhouse in Amish country, how safe can our kids be? You and I both have school-aged children. Right. What about the fear that come out of seeing these pictures on television?
Well, you have to assume that the kids at school are talking about this, and kids are going to come home with questions. I'm not a big believer ever in having the television set on during dinner. It's a time for discussion. So whatever your kids want to talk about, this is a time to really, really listen. And then you talk about things that are age appropriate. 5- and 6-year-olds, you shield them as much as possible. And for your 12- to 15-year-olds, you don't say, oh, well, it can't happen here, because now we know it can happen anywhere. You listen to them and you respect them and you say, look, it's isolated, it's selfish, it's brutal, it's a part of our world, but the reality is I'm still here to protect you.
And for the folks who have had us on during the dinner hour, another fear that can emerge is this seemingly normal person who suddenly becomes a monster. And how do we deal with that fear?
Most adults, most family members, most neighbors are perfectly normal, are never going to harm everyone, and this kind of evil springs up, and if you and I can't explain it, we can't expect a 15-year-old to comprehend it. But I would say that it's a time to let them vent and talk about their anxieties, and I don't care how old your kids are tonight, whether they're 3 or 19, they deserve to get tucked in bed.
Yeah, they got to know the adults.
It's a special moment to own those times. That's right.
Keep them safe.
That's
Dr.
right.
Nancy Snyderman, thank you,
You're
as
welcome,
always.
Brian.
We'll take another break here. When we come back tonight, our series of reports this week we're calling the Home Front. Tonight, America's women at war. Tonight we continue here our week-long series looking at the home front. Even though women are technically not allowed to serve in combat, tonight we look at the increasing number of women who are fighting and dying in uniform in 2 separate wars without a front. Tonight, NBC's David Gregory has the often untold story of service and sacrifice.
On a crisp fall day at West Point, mourners came to mark a sad milestone. 23-year-old 2nd Lieutenant Emily Perez became the first female graduate of the storied military academy to die in Iraq, struck by a roadside bomb south of Baghdad. Her parents, Daniel and Vicky, remember a born leader.
Emily always led from the front. She never shirked any of her responsibilities. She was a soldier.
For all the debate about whether women belong on the front lines, they are there, fighting and dying in both Afghanistan and Iraq. Lieutenant Perez was the 64th killed in action. By comparison, only 8 women were killed in Vietnam. Lori Tui is a decorated staff sergeant in the National Guard.
They're dying, they're losing limbs, they're firing their weapons, they're having mortars launched at them. To me, that's the definition of combat.
The military bars women from serving in ground combat forces. The feeling's been that women would undermine the bond of an all-male unit, wouldn't be strong enough, and that the public simply couldn't stomach women dying in war. What's changed? In combat zones like Iraq, there are no safe areas. With the military stretched so thin, experts say more women are on the front lines out of necessity.
To paraphrase our Secretary of Defense, you go to war with the troops you've got, and 15% of them are women.
Including Army medic Kelly Kenyon, who was attached to an infantry unit.
I really wanted to prove them wrong, show them we can do it, we are capable. Look at what we can do.
Look at what Lieutenant Perez did.
What Emily showed me was that it didn't make a difference whether you were a man or a woman. She was their equal.
A soldier's soldier, a woman, fighting an enemy that makes no distinction. David Gregory, NBC News, New York.
That is our broadcast for this Tuesday night. Thank you, as always, for being with us. I'm Brian Williams. We'll look for you right back here tomorrow evening. Good night.
NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, awarded again and again for excellence in journalism. America's most honored evening newscast, NBC Nightly News.
Good morning. Somber vigils. Mourners turn out in force in Pennsylvania to pray for the victims of a schoolhouse madman, as his suicide note provides new details about why he snapped. Shocking twist, the congressman who quit over inappropriate emails to teenage boys claims he was molested by a clergyman as a teen. Is this the abuse excuse for bad behavior? And the running of the bulls, the Dow opens at a record high today, Wednesday, October 4th, 2006.
From NBC News, this is Today with Matt Lauer and Meredith Vieira, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Today on this Wednesday morning. I'm Matt Lauer. Meredith is on assignment today, but Ann Curry is standing by once again this morning in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania. That, of course, the site of Monday's horrific school shooting. Ann, good morning to you.
Matt, good morning. The death toll from this horrific tragedy remains at 5, with 5 other girls still struggling to survive, hospitalized in serious or in critical condition. Last night, more than 1,600 people gathered at several prayer services here to remember the victims. New details are also emerging about Charles Roberts, the man who committed this horrendous crime before taking his own life. Investigators believe he spent nearly a week plotting the crime and may have planned to sexually assault the young girls inside before police rushed in. Authorities also say Roberts told his wife while he was holed up inside the school that he molested